Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Coffee Hour. Hope you guys are having a wonderful Friday afternoon, wherever you are, or Saturday morning, I suppose, depending on where you are exactly. It's been a while. I think it's been about 2 months since the last episode. To be entirely honest, well, first of all, we didn't want to overlap with OBC too much, but we also kind of ran out of topics, so we did some brainstorming into what would be cool to have. And I filled a lot of these with a lot of coffee, sort of get the juices flowing. And we came up with the idea that it would be really cool to do some showcases, not showcases, but game mode specific, quote unquote, history lessons. Both for players that are already in the mode, that, you know, get a little refresher of stuff that has happened in the past, and maybe also people that are maybe not as involved, that might still be interested, that might feel a little bit intimidated because they have no idea what's going on in the other modes. If you're, for example, a standard player looking to try out Catch the Beat, but you have no, or also catch, excuse me, slip up number 1. You can tally me. But if you have no context for the past or what to look for, it's a little bit more daunting. So, yeah, we thought it would be really cool to get some people on that are known throughout the community, that have been around for a while, to give us those history lessons. We're gonna start out with Osu Catch, and then obviously the other, this is funny music. The other 3 modes are also gonna have their own turn. So today we are going to be joined by JBHyperion, who has been on before. I'm saying that with 90% certainty. And our good sir Sartan, who is gonna be the one on camera today. Hold on, let me unmute myself here. Hello there.
Hello. Okay,
You are now visible to the world.
Hello,
Right.
world.
Hello,
Hello,
world.
everybody. And yeah, that's us indeed.
Yeah, we tried getting Hyperion on camera. We did get a little bit of a private show for a moment, but we didn't end up getting it to work on the actual stream. So for now, he's gonna be a spinning circle. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing great. What about you, actually?
I'm doing pretty okay. I didn't sleep that much last night, so if I'm a little bit wobbly, then that's why. But I'm gonna try my best.
We'll be fine, man. It's gonna be all right.
We're gonna do great.
Yeah.
All right, so short introductions. First, we'll start to my left, JBHyperion. A little bit about how you got started initially, what your process was, and you know what you do now, what you find most interesting.
Okay, so I guess I first started after just finding some YouTube videos of songs, and then thinking, oh, this looks pretty cool, I'll check it out. And that was in about the August or September of 2014.
Catch the Beat specifically, or
I played Standard until about the end of the year, and then started playing Catch around November, December.
Okay.
And I lost my desk that I was using to play Standard on, so mousing on like a pillow just didn't work.
Mousing on a pillow. You could have used anything as a mouse pad.
I had no table, I was literally playing on a sofa, so
wow. Okay.
Catch was something I could play with like keyboard on lap. So I got into that way.
All right.
And then just kind of really took off with it from there and started mapping early 2015.
How was that? How was it getting into Osu Catch? What do you prefer? Do you prefer if I say Catch the Beat, or do you prefer if I say Osu Catch?
It was Catch the Beat at the time, but I guess it's Us Catch now.
Okay, I don't want to step on any toes, is all.
Catch the Beat.
Okay. Because to my understanding, there's no specific editor for Catch the Beat. If you were unaware, there's only a standard editor.
Yeah, so the editor effectively in Catch is basically just the standard editor, except your note placement is only affected by the x-axis. So technically you can just put everything on the x-axis between 0 and 512 or wherever the right-hand side is.
How do you even get into mapping
make a
that?
map. I had mapped standard a bit before, and aesthetics were something that I got too kind of picky with, and it wasted way too much of my time.
Okay.
So I guess catch being standard but without so many aesthetics, I didn't find it quite as difficult.
Okay.
But it is very difficult for someone who's never opened an editor to get into, I think, before.
Right.
And I think that was one of the questions that we'll talk more about later. But...
Yeah, that's true. So, okay, you started mapping. You started mapping and then eventually joined QAT.
So yeah, I joined the Beatmap Nominators in June of 2015, and then QAT the following year, also in the June. So I've been in that role for about a year and a half now.
Okay. All right. How about you, Sartan? Tell us about your life.
About my life, of all
entirety
things,
of
wow,
it.
that's special. You're making me feel special. Well, I'm Sartan, as you already said. I'm a Dutchie, 18 years old, and I started playing Osu in early 2014. As a matter of fact, some friends introduced me to the game. At first, I found it kind of weird and didn't really enjoy it all too much, but I kept on playing because it was a grouply activity. We all enjoyed it, so altogether, that was a fine experience. But yeah, over time, they all quit, sadly, and then CWC 2014. Yeah,
that's
everybody
the experience
has that, right?
of
Everyone
person.
abandoned him.
Eventually, all my friends stopped playing,
them in. Yeah,
and
exactly.
now they're no
and
longer
I
my
left.
friends.
That perhaps is not true for everyone,
Oh, okay.
but I'm okay.
It's personal experience.
Some personal scars. Yeah. All right, but yeah, I got into catch because of the actual World Cup that was hosted that year, the 2014 CWC. Was a very cool cup to see. Yeah, and that kind of inspired me to try out this fruit catching thing because, well, it's different than clicking circles, so perhaps I like it better. And well, guess what? I did like it better in the end, and hence started, committing more to catch. Playing more myself, and in the end, my aspirations really became just playing in the Catch World Cups myself, becoming really good, and that happened in 2016 and 2017. And playing in those World Cups was a great experience.
How did that feel for you? Like setting up a goal to get there, and then eventually, after a couple of years, actually making it.
Oh, it was nerve-wracking, but it was amazing, I can tell you that much. Yeah, because in 2015, actually, I already tried to get into it, but the fact of the matter was I had a PC crash, and that lasted for about 5 months. I didn't really have any money to spend on a new PC, so I didn't really have any time to practice, even though I was very motivated to try and do more stuff. So I didn't make it in 2015, then I started playing even more so than before, and I made it in 2016. It was great to be there.
That's awesome.
I was honestly ecstatic. We didn't make it out of group stage though, but other than that, it was great. It was a great experience.
It's about the idea. All right,
Yeah,
cool.
exactly.
And now you've moved on to hosting your own tournaments?
I've done it in the meantime, actually, as a matter of fact. I started hosting tournaments in the middle of 2015. My first tournament was the representative tournament. Probably nobody from the catch community even knows that anymore, except for maybe the
That's how you know it's
niche amount of
niche.
people. Yeah, it was really niche, and it was only meant for what I did really was invite only the highest ranked players from each country. And had them play 1v1s, but it was badly organized. And I can tell you, map pools were made by me, a newbie,
Okay.
and they were ranging from 4 to 8 stars and that kind of stuff. It
In a
was
single round?
In a single round.
That is next level. Okay.
Yeah, that was next level stuff. But yeah, that actually inspired me to go on with the tournament stuff. I met Wesley, who was also very interested in tournaments, also a Dutchie. And together we decided to go on with this path. We made this group called Custom Catch Tournaments. And then from there on, we decided to host about 2 or more tournaments each year, with our main staple being AXS. And actually, that's a tournament that's ongoing right now, the 3rd edition of it.
Cool.
And thus I got into the competitive scene, and I set up even more projects that are soon incoming 2018, and that's pretty much my interest in OC.
All right. Ambitious. I like it. Cool. So that's our introduction of the people to my sides. Now, the idea behind specifically, a history lesson is that we let people that know what they're talking about speak. That's an important part of learning any type of history. So we have a couple of different areas that we're going to cover. First of all, the history of catch and mechanics in general, how that developed over the years. Then the mapping and the meta. We're going to go over tournaments itself, how that started out, and how that is today. And then eventually how, a couple things that might change moving forward with Laser. I'm going to start with the history of catch and mechanics. Who wants to take it away there?
Well, first of all, I'm quickly going to give a shout out to a few people who helped us out with the process of making this entire ordeal. Yeah, we even made a list. We are so nice to people. But yeah, to the people that helped us, here, Erica, Lion, QTXE, Yurti, and King Kevin, want to thank you lots. Those are some old school players, and they, gave us a little bit of a heads up on information from the past that we didn't experience quite.
Oh.
So yeah, hard to see you. We love you, and thanks. And JBH, you can take it off if you want.
Yeah, so we're both kind of fairly new as far as the game mode is concerned. So we have to do a bit of research. I did the trawling research myself.
Okay.
Some of the people that obviously Sartan has mentioned did also provide things that were useful to like the take on mapping in the history. So obviously I'll reiterate those thanks because some of that stuff would not have been possible without them.
Yeah, it's really hard to like comprehensively, because it spans like 10 years at this point. It's really hard.
Even I had no idea that it was as old as it was until I actually sat down and looked for old threads and old kind of tournament listings and that kind of thing.
Right, because that's a good point to start. Catch the Beat was introduced when?
November 2008.
Yeah, that's when I started playing. That's when I started.
Very long ago.
Yeah, that is a while ago.
So it was based off of a DJ, easy to DJ mode called Easy to Catch. And it was like a kind of special mod in some early games, and then it appeared fully in 6 tracks from 2004. So essentially, Easy to Catch was similar to the current incarnation of CTB or OSCatch, except the catcher was moved by like a kind of turntable. That you could move like left and right. It was an easy to DJ games, and so I guess you had like a hand placed on a turntable.
Only the avatar was different. It wasn't actually mechanically different. Oh, okay.
So the only kind of
really
major,
weird, but it's the same concept, really.
Yeah. The other major mechanical difference is that you could have multiple notes falling at the same time, and I'm not quite sure how that was handled. Just looking through old YouTube videos, but that's something that OS doesn't handle apart from in the Mania game mode. So that would be the kind of main difference there. The movement using the turntable, I guess, if anyone has played Catch with the Relax mod, where you can use the mouse instead of the left and right buttons, then it's kind of like that in that you can move your catcher at whatever speed you like.
That's what I do when I want to feel adequate. I tried dodge the beat once, and that's what I did. I remember. Because it makes it actually easy to play.
You think so? A high level
for me at least.
It's pretty challenging. Really, I can tell you that.
No, I don't doubt it.
I'll get into that with the tournament part actually, because there's something interesting there. There was actually a Dutch to beat tournament. We'll get into that later.
Okay. One thing at a time. All right, and then from there we went to,
well,
because how did that start out when a mode is introduced? Because eventually, it had to be ranked. Initially, it wasn't.
Yeah, at the start it was really quick, honestly. As a lot of people actually meme about on Catch, it was pretty much considered a minigame, and it was pretty much considered as like a secondary thing. You could do it also next to your standard, right? So a lot of people that were good back in those days, those were standard players that just played a little bit of Catch next to the side. And honestly, it stayed like that for a very long time. And as JBH will get into the mapping part, you will see that actually the rule sets, for example, mapping for Catch, for a very long time weren't really set in stone in any proper manner. And they were kind of ridiculous, honestly. So yeah, as for mechanical changes, there's been 2 very big changes that I'm going to talk about here throughout the game that kind of shaped it to where we are right now. So first of all, you had the hyperdashing. Hyperdashing had 2 iterations in its lifetime. First of all, it was introduced in 2009 due to certain converts, which are, maps that were made for standard, and you convert those to Catch. Right. Actually pretty impossible to play because some maps were just simply too far off for you to catch.
So initially you couldn't hyperdash, you could only move left and right.
You could only move left to right, static speed. You didn't really have any kind of variation to that. So what they did in 2009 was introduce the hyperdash. Now the hyperdash is pretty much, you press out a button and you move faster with, you move faster with your catcher, and if you go to a red fruit, you get a extra bonus speed increase that will hopefully get you to the next note in time, pretty much. That's how it was implemented.
Right.
But yeah, hopefully. I mean, you can still miss, obviously, if you're a scrub, that is. But at time, people got better, and the game got more advanced, etc. And hyper dashing only changed one more time, actually. As a matter of fact, it was kind of quirky still in its use because, well, it was simply put a movement speed increase, as I already said, and sometimes you could overshoot or undershoot if you didn't really watch out all too proper.
Right.
So what they did in the years of 2012 to 2013 especially was make it so that the hyper dash would rather like push you into a note while you were, while you caught it. So you got a little bit of a snap, as they call it, into that next note.
That's actually, now that I think about it, the little clip that we have of the initial... I don't know how long into patch this was, but this is a clip from
2008. This is October 2008.
Oh, it is.
This is like really long ago. This is like when patch was just game.
That guy looks serious. Loud? Oh no! I didn't know it had sound. It has sound? Oh god. I'm so sorry, guys. I did not know that. I apologize.
Jeez. Happy, what have you done?
I had no idea. We don't hear it. I apologize.
It's alright, man. But yeah. At least you kind of got the basic concept of it back then. Well, it was
wake
really
up, everybody.
Well, at least
if you weren't awake yet. Hello.
But yeah. This got changed over time due to its quirky use, and you even had these kind of, weird use of mechanics, as in, like, you could literally pause the game, and that would make it so that you could actually catch notes that you couldn't catch if you didn't pause the game with the hyper dashing mechanic in its first iteration. So it was really weird, honestly. People found out about that, like, throughout the years. And thus it got changed by the help of a few people. Some of the pro players are Velperk, Eldenel, LineQTC, they actually worked together with, I think it was Peppy, on fixing that hyper dashing problem, and the entire snapping into the notes thing was actually introduced by that time. So yeah, that is the big change that led to hyper dashing, and that is actually still the way it works today. So yeah, it's not seen any.
It sounds like a sensible way of handling things. So
it is definitely a sensible way of handling things. So luckily, we still have that exactly. And next to that, oh, sorry?
They say things being like flat out impossible is never sensible. So I'm pretty glad that they fixed that one.
Yeah, after some time. Well, they didn't take it quite as serious, as I already said in the earlier years. It was a minigame, but then catch grew, and people got more into it, and it actually became a fully fledged game mode. Second big change over the years was actually the PP system. All modes actually got the overhaul from PPV1 to PPV2, as far as I know. But yeah, for catch it was a pretty major one, as you had some pretty weird stuff. And PPV1.
For context, really quick, initially when Osu came out, for a couple years, you were ranked based on your score, and that obviously carried over into Catch the Beat at the time. And then that turned into the PP system, which actually ranked your performance on maps specifically rather than score, and then eventually that evolved into PPV2, which is what we have now. So that's the context for Osu as a whole, if you were unaware of that.
Yeah, I was kind of a little bit too short on that explanation there, so thanks for following in there with the door. But yeah, basically it changed so that, for example, halftime hard rock wouldn't give more PP anymore than no mod. Guess what? It actually gave more PP back in that day because...
Halftime hard rock?
Halftime hard rock, because the increase you got from hard rock is actually bigger than the decrease you got from halftime on most maps. So it was really weird, and a lot of people got like top 1 because of that. Just by using the halftime hard rock stuff. Like, I think King Kevin 30 is in the chat right now, and you can like talk about it as well. You can type out a few things. It's
actually a test of patience. Playing stuff with halftime is torture.
I mean, it still is torture, right? But yeah, back in the day, it was actually sensible to use if you were going for rank. So yeah, that changed with PPV2, as well as the way it was calculated. What I wrote down and what I got from people from back in those days that actually played was that first, the PP system actually accounted for distance that you traveled over time. So pretty much you had a distance that you catch move, and then you divide it by the time of the song, and that actually, that shows you how much performance points you will get. Then it changed to rapid movements divided by time. So that means like the hyper dashing, the snapping into maps.
Okay, rewarding the speedy boys.
The speedy boys got rewarded big time, and that's pretty much how it still works to this day. And as JBH will soon say about the mapping meta, that actually is still the way mapping works to this day, and this is what kind of people are tuned to map on, right? This is the meta, kind of. It started there.
Right. All right. This is gonna be your expertise, Mr. Hyperion.
Okay, so Sartan there was talking about PP, and that's obviously a kind of consequence of maps being ranked. And we talked about how Catch or CTB at the time was introduced in late 2008, but CTB maps weren't even rankable until about April 2012. So that's like 3.5 years later. 2 difficulties did somehow sneak through in 2010, and after that,
I wonder how that happened. I wonder what the story there is.
There were single diffs on sets with standard difficulties, and I have to assume that after that, the developers decided, hold on, if you want to rank any more of these, then they've got to be of like actually good quality. And I think standard at the time obviously would have had its own ranking criteria,
right?
Improving the mapping meta there. And they thought, well, if you guys want to be your own mode with your own like specific maps, and you want to be able to rank,
independence.
I think that's what it must have felt like to the players and the mappers at the time. And there were discussions for the best part of a year on just working out like what rules should we have, what should the guidelines be, why aren't CTB maps rankable, and a couple of people contributed towards that. Zelos and actually Shern, who obviously a lot of people will know as a very famous standard mapper, were 2 of the people that put in most of the work in terms of defining what the ranking criteria for Catch should be. So they were looking at what the kind of recommended approach rates and circle sizes should be, what types of patterns would be too difficult to play and should be unrankable.
Right.
Those kind of settings there. And as I said, it took till about April 2012 before they got
long.
to
how long is that? That is 4.5 years.
So
3.5 years.
Yeah, it's wow. 3.5 years since it became featured in the game, and about two years or so, and since it became like its own mode instead of like a mod for standard.
That to me was surprisingly recent. I thought it was gonna be back in 2009 or something. I didn't think it would be 2012.
Minigamer.
But when they had like a list of these are the rules and the guidelines that we want to put forward, the solution for kind of flicking the switch on are CTB maps rankable or not was quite funny. And there was a message from Sakura Hana, who I guess was one of the bats at the time, who said, what we want you to do is make a regular map set with 1 or more CTB specific diffs, and then try and rank it. And if we think it's good enough, then we'll rank it and we'll nuke the rule. So everyone was rushing to get that one first ranked map. And it went through, and nobody kind of complained about it too much. Maybe because nobody really, even though there were mappers, none of the bats, the beatmap appreciators, or what are now the beatmap nominators at the time, would have known anything about it particularly. So maybe they didn't have anything negative to say about it.
Because it's new waters for literally everyone, which makes stuff like that very interesting.
So as of then, it was decided, yep, sure, this can be rankable, so we'll nuke this rule and you can have your independence, as you said. And the last kind of 5, nearly 6 years have been people building on that, slowly developing the rules and guidelines a bit further.
So both of you guys joined when those were already in place, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Although I would have quite liked to see what it had been like back when they were kind of fighting
the Wild Fruit West,
fighting for the diffs to be rankable. Those threads are very interesting if you want to learn about what people thought were important in maps and mapping way back when.
What was it you said earlier, Sartan, that they had added to the list of stuff that a map should have?
Pretty much what I said, and what basically back then the rule was if we like it, if it's fun to us personally, then we can rank it for you. Pretty much. That's what I said. And as JB has already explained, yeah, that was pretty much how it went back in the day. So in the forums, you just have people kind of yelling around like, hey, the map is fun, so we should probably do something with it. And
Super solid.
not agree.
Super solid.
The only
Super solid
two-
argumentation.
That is great.
Yeah.
The only two real like hard rules, and that's weird saying hard rules, but your map must be accessible. So there are no like stacked objects that can't like falling at the same time that you can't catch, and
Right.
the map must be fun to play. That was an actual rule, not a guideline, a rule.
Okay.
And I
I'm
wonder
so glad
if
these
someone had
days
tried
are
to
open.
enforce that, what it would have gone down like.
It's funny. I mean, you got to start somewhere and then build on that. So, you know. All right, and then the growth from there. We have a couple screenshots that Sartan spent, I think, like 5 hours on. Hold on, I'm going to switch to the content tab. I'm hoping that the audio doesn't play. Okay, I'm assuming it doesn't. We got team tournament participation rate throughout the years. I'm sure Sartan.
Oh, did you put that one as first, actually?
Did I? Oh, wait. Which one did you want first?
Actually, let's just move on with the mapping. Actually,
There we go. I got that.
Yeah.
All right.
Great.
We're basically doing a marketing presentation.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, you have to pull
Okay,
it up
so-
at your end.
Yeah, so you'll see on screen there the number of ranked difficulties in orange throughout each year, and then the number of mappers who ranked at least one difficulty in blue. And you can see 2011 has an auspicious kind of gap in the middle where everyone was deciding, how do we become rankable? And then fairly impressive progression throughout there. So 2014
It's so
and
consistent
2016.
that it looks fake. It looks like it's fake because it's so...
Please don't claim that. I spent hours
No,
doing
no, no.
this data.
I believe you.
Heartbroken, this man. Unbelievable. We can do happy.
Where
sexy
is the
effects
trust?
and
I'm sorry.
bad-
That's a pretty crazy growth though. Is that wait? So that's a year. So in 2017, that's 350 ranked maps in a year.
So that's, unfortunately, I wish it was ranked maps, but it's just ranked difficulties.
Oh,
Catch is still a bit of a baby mode compared to, obviously, to standard, and it's even compared to Tycho and Mania as well. But
yeah. I wonder how
improvements
it all stacks
are
up.
improvements.
Yeah. So that's our attempt at looking professional. Okay, wait, we actually also have, let me check. We have the tournament stats. Also catch rank difficulty distribution. Oh, someone else is gonna have to pick this one. Cup salad platter rain overdose marathon.
So there's a similar listing of the number of each type of difficulty that's been ranked to the end of 2017. So
What
cut
is each?
through overdose being easy to extra.
Oh.
Classic fashion, we have some slightly strange.
Okay, I see. It's
difficulty
difficulty
names.
names. Gotcha.
So I'm surprised that wasn't one of the kind of questions that got asked in the announcement discus. But essentially, since it was the sprites were of fruit, and I think the achievements at the time were fruit salad, fruit platter, and fruit overdose for the catch so many different fruits achievements. If you remember those from back when, I think Mania, Tycho, and Standard have some similar ones. And after some discussion, they kind of stuck. So everyone decided to kind of stick with them.
That's funny.
I don't quite know why no one's ever really pushed for them to be changed. I guess it's just
I like him.
a historic kind of. They're quite cute in their own little
Yeah.
way.
Okay. All right. And then, so you basically picked up your mapping career, quote unquote, based on, you know, what was already existing. Was it easy to get into that community? Because I'm assuming it was still fairly small when you joined.
I think when I joined, like, mapping catch, and I thought, okay, I'm actually going to try and do something with this, not just mess around in the editor. there were probably only about 20 or 30 active mappers at the time, maybe 5 or 6 beatmap nominators. So trying to find people, even to kind of look at your map and say anything other than, oh, nice map, or oh, I didn't like that map, was quite difficult.
This is fun. This can be nice.
I think most people decided to just link their map in chat, and because there weren't too many people in chat, it's obviously a smaller mode, then you'd always, maybe you're more likely to find someone to kind of go like, might as well click this link and download this map and play it. And I think I'm quite lucky in that a lot of my kind of friends that I'd been talking to at the time, we all kind of convinced each other to get into it at the same time.
Right.
So we all managed to help each other and grow that way.
If people want to get into Catch the Beat, also catch mapping, how would they best go about it now, do you think?
See, I think for a lot of people, as I said before, it all comes down to the editor being really unintuitive to someone who's never opened it before.
I can relate to that, yeah. Definitely.
I already have a hard time in the normal standard editor.
But there are a couple of guides that people have produced on like what kind of patterns could be used. So I think C, or Say to some people, a German mapper from 2013 and 14, he had a big like library of screenshots that just showed all the different types of stream patterns and slider patterns that he'd seen in other maps, and it was basically just an encyclopedia really of, here's a bunch of patterns, try them out, and if you like them, put them in your maps. So I think a lot of people, even today, can still learn from that.
Laser will have first class catch editor. First class is gonna be the best editor out of all the modes.
I'm dreaming of a beautiful catch editor in the near future.
So,
indeed, yeah.
From there, obviously, the other side of development was the tournament scene, for which, you know, Sartan for the most. Wait, when did you join? 2014, did you say?
Yeah, 2014.
So that's 2 years after it became an official mode. Were there any real tournaments before then?
2 years, really. I mean, Catch was introduced in 2008, and
no, I mean, as an official game mode, 2012 to 2014.
Oh yeah, yeah, okay, that's right. But yeah, actually, prior to that, we actually saw a lot of tournaments pop up. Most of them failed, but it was a pretty interesting thing, actually. Back in 2010, you had a lot of attempts at tournaments, right? But Catch was kind of an incomplete mode. You didn't really have a lot of people maining the mode either, so you didn't really have very strong competition to test yourself on. But what you had is this one individual called Wheeze from Canada. And Wheeze actually managed to squeeze out some of the earliest tournaments in Catch that were participated in by quite a number of people, or at least relative to the entire community.
What did all the tournaments have issues with? Getting enough participants?
Yeah.
Like when you say that they failed.
Issue, map pooling was an issue because map pools were kind of quirky. One tournament was played, it actually only had 3 maps in the map pool. You had I'm not even joking here. It was a standard map, an easy map, and a hard map, and that was your map pool. And scoring also had issues, is what I've been told. So scoring for Catch wasn't quite finalized either. So it wasn't really even, you couldn't even quite get a tournament out proper.
3 maps, that's insane.
3 maps in a map pool. Would you imagine that nowadays? That's crazy indeed. Yeah.
Round of 32, round of 16, round of 8.
And in the finals, we have 5 maps. Think of that. Great. But yeah, earliest tournaments were then hosted by Wheeze, as I already said. And Wheeze actually took that responsibility upon him by quite a big margin too, because he did the reffing, he did the map pooling, he literally did everything for his own tournaments. But it was quite a success, actually. If you wanna, you can pull up that graph that we made, the professional. I copied this from Google spreadsheet and pasted it onto Photoshop graph.
Okay, hold on. Now I'm gonna pull up the right one. Oh, that's not it. I apologize. I clicked the wrong one. Oh god.
An attempt was made.
I'm so sorry.
But yeah,
team tournament participation rate throughout the years. There we go.
All right. So what I put on a graph really were the big
I just want to make sure
team
everyone's
tournaments on Yeah, sure. You can play the video whatever. I mean, we don't mind, right? But the graph actually shows the big team versus tournaments. So I'm excluding solo tournaments because they mostly have like a player limit, because you don't want to have too many players participating, because that will be a complete clown fiesta in group stage. But as you see, most of these tournaments you see in the early years, so think of like 2010 up to early 2014, were all hosted by Wii's. And other than that, you had local tournaments, which were kind of prevalent then. You had a lot of Chinese tournaments. You had a few attempts made for your UK tournament, some failed attempts at European tournaments, but mostly local, and Wii's did the big stuff, right? In 2015, he actually hosted the very first, well, I'm going to call it the very first official Catch World Cup, because it had a badge, actually, for the winner. So that was a first for Catch.
Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Well, that's a big milestone.
It's a pretty big milestone indeed. It was won by the Chileans, and it was a very enjoyable tournament, they told me. I'm good friends with Line. He played in the winning team, and he has good memories from that. Map pooling was still pretty weird, though. The finals map pool actually had 10 no mods. Yeah, 10 no mods. 4 hidden, 4 hard rock, and 4 double time, and then a tiebreaker.
That's so much to practice. Wow.
That is a lot to practice, yeah. I mean,
maps.
it kind of...
Oh, God.
Yeah. Kind of compensates for free mod as well, but back in the day, it was all just no mod, right? It was a very big part of the game.
Right.
But as tournaments changed, actually, the World Cup became more of an official, and, it was kind of a backbone for the community to rely on, because Locksoft started to take over the World Cups, including the CWC in 2014, the year when I got into OSU. And from that point on, actually, the community tournaments started to falter in number, the big ones at least, because we quit the game, or just didn't feel like hosting tournaments, but he got out of the community part of the tournaments.
Okay.
Started to leave that be. And that was actually the case for a very long period before we actually got back on track with community tournaments on large scale at least. So in 2015, there were, 3 groups actually that started hosting tournaments. First one being Heyang Erika, doing all these kind of gimmicky tournaments, so that's why I didn't list them. But think of something like a sudden death tournament or a convert tournament.
Sudden death tournament. That sounds exciting.
Yeah, it's a pretty weird format. You had like 15 people in a multi, and then it kind of just cut out the people that played worst on maps, and then only 5 were left, and those advanced to the next round. It was pretty interesting to see. But as for the tournaments, you had Ascendance actually hosting 1v1 tournaments. Those were participated in quite nicely. And I started hosting tournaments with Wesley, as already mentioned earlier, and we started off with AXS. So AXS actually got 150 people to play in the very first edition. For Cats, that is a pretty big milestone.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
And it actually became the biggest Cats community tournament from back in that day. Only CWC topping it, really, because CWC had 32 teams. And that was a very interesting development. But, as these tournaments were becoming more prevalent and they just popped up more in number, people actually weren't quite prepared in 2016. And what you got is a drop in participation rate in all tournaments. All my tournaments had a big drop. For example, the second edition of AXS only had 101 people. So we dropped 49 people in that year, as well as other tournaments like the solo tournament just had less signups, and it seemed really weird. Like,
that must have been discouraging when you get that.
It was definitely discouraging, but I had high hopes and I kept on doing my stuff. So did everybody else, actually, as a matter of fact. And we went into 2017, and 2017 was really the year where I think catch tournaments became all the more interesting. So CWC was a really good year. It was a great tournament. JB and I had a pleasure of commentating for that, and the matches were great, right? High quality, tiebreakers and finals rounds. People were very closely matched to each other, which you don't see, for example, Taiko and Mania, where you have Japan and South Korea being dominant. But right here in catch, competition was actually fair. It was quite fair. You still had South Korea being the best team.
That's a rarity. Okay.
It's a very big rarity, but it was very nice, and that actually stimulated even more competition. Then 2 things happened. First, you had people actually starting to work on dance. And what dance are, it's actually an original idea from Mania. What you have is a set of maps, and they test a very specific skill set of yours. So think, for example, about speed or technicality. And you have certain levels you can, play at, and you can then on your profile, whatever, or you can brag to your friends about what kind of level you were able to pass on these catch Dan maps. And those
was
were
that
made
done
by
live in a multi, or was that just like, here's a list of maps and you go through these?
it was just posted on, for example, Twitter or on profiles or on the forums, and people were just able to, reply to those forums or on Twitter and then talk about their experience with the dance. Not in multi
cute.
by any means. Yeah, it was more of a solo activity, but it stimulated the competition. What then happened was a huge increase in tournament participation again. Maybe you can grab that graph again, so you kind of have a little bit of an idea. What
this fancy graph you mean, where I won't click the wrong thing at all? Yeah,
yeah, exactly,
I know this one.
That beautiful one.
I'm very familiar with it. It looks great.
Yeah. So what we had in 2016-17, for example, the 1v1 tournament from Ascendance got way more participation rate than the year before. But AXS went from 101 people to 195 out of the blue a year after. So that was a year's progress worth.
Did you have open signups for like no limit?
It's pretty much no limit, and we cut off teams at 32. So we actually had to cut off 3 teams, but the year before only had 18 teams, right?
Yeah.
So just imagine that big jump. And I'm thinking this is going to stabilize because people are actually more used to this stuff now. People know that there's tournaments ongoing and they will be there annually. So I'm thinking people actually start to participate in these things more often, know they're coming, be prepared for them as well. Because a lot of people I talked about AXS2 with that didn't participate mostly said, I just don't feel like it. I wasn't prepared. I just, that kind of stuff. So
a big part of it is the fact that if you don't know for sure if stuff is going to be around again, why even bother? But if you have that consistency, then cool.
Exactly.
Do you have any experience? Have you map pooled, for example, for tournaments, Hyperion?
So I've done a couple of community map pools for tournaments, and I'm a map pool selector for Sartan's AXS tournament that's just going on at the moment. So I've done some kind of map pooling, some commentary. I did play in the 2016 Catch World Cup. That didn't go too well. I don't think I'll be participating in the UK. I think I'm nowhere near good enough for them anymore.
Okay.
But that was quite fun. But yeah, I think it is interesting to see, as Sartan said, like some of the really early map pools were like they were jokes, weren't they? Looking back at them, you think how could people how could people pick like
call it an antique? No, that does seem very silly. But
it was just
you gotta start. You gotta start.
But I think that's to be expected because some of these tournaments were taking place when, like, there weren't any actual catch map sets. There were just occasional diffs that someone managed to tag on the end of a standard set.
It does make it hard to get into.
Even when there were full map sets, people were so used to playing kind of convert maps, so standard maps converted into catch, that maybe they just didn't want to pick them because they were so used to. Everyone who was playing in the tournaments was used to playing on the converts. That's a bit of a speculation on my part. I have no idea. Some old
Can
players
I see a source, sir?
Correct me on that.
Okay. So if someone wanted to give catch a try, now without, changing mode to catch and then catching some fruits, what would be a mini roadmap kind of thing for people that wanted to try it, where they can get a proper starting experience?
To just try playing the game mode? Like getting into it or getting into...
Just to get familiar with it. To break the ice.
Well, I mean, a lot of people coming into catch still get in through playing converts purely because there's way more song choice in standard, and a lot of people just want to casually play the songs that they like.
And you have to specifically look for the specific maps, which is like an extra barrier. I can imagine.
But if people have come from another mode, say, and they already have a fair selection of songs that they like in standard mode, there's a saying that gets batted around a bit, and it is true to a certain extent, although it's becoming less true now with like modern mapping becoming better. But standard maps converted into catch, some will say they're good, some will say they're bad. Most people will say they're generally kind of fairly acceptable.
Okay.
So if you just want to play catch to songs that you like, then just pick a song that you have a standard map for, throw the modifier on, and give it a try.
Halftime hard rock.
If you find that you like the game mode, and I personally, when I first started playing it compared to standard, I found it quite relaxing. It was very chill. It was obviously something that I could play with like just on my laptop without having a mouse and keyboard and a desk or whatnot. And then if you decide that you like playing the game mode, then you could search through the specific maps that we now have. Not a huge amount of, but there's a moderate selection of different genres and mappers and styles and things that you can pick from at all different kinds of skill levels.
Are there any anime maps?
There's lots of anime maps.
Plenty, yeah.
Okay, so largely it developed from 2008 through 2012 in terms of mechanics and all that. And then I'm assuming the main changes moving forward from there are mapping meta and the tournament scene. So from the present, where do you see Catch move forward?
I mean, I can
Sartan,
just start
do you want to take this one
tournament-wise,
first?
I guess. Yeah. I'll just start competitive-wise, and then you can go on about the mapping stuff. I think that 2018, and from 2018 onward, is going to be pretty interesting to see. Not just because more tournaments are popping up and the player base is actually increasing in size, which means you can socialize more, obviously, get more intrigued. Yeah, obviously, socializing is great. Everybody loves socializing, right? But the thing is, more community projects are actually being set up as well that are also going to be available to catch, right? At least I am busy with a few projects myself. Currently, I'm going to be busy with this thing called challenge maps. Challenge maps being, well, you have like 4 difficulties. And it's not like dance where you just test a specific skill set, but it's rather just really hard maps, and they're supposed to be passed, and then you can compare, have leaderboards for that kind of stuff. You know, new community inputs is very present in 2018, and as you already said, in 2017 people started mapping dance, and more tournaments were popping up. Local tournaments were also becoming more of a thing again, like a Polish Catch to Beat tournament. Those kind of things are starting to become more of a thing throughout the years. And as we see in the numbers, you know, those great graph numbers that we just showed you on stream, the interest rate is also increasing lots. So the competition is going to be more fun to play with because it's more equal to each other. And, you know, you can just, you know, meet new people. It's really interesting. So I think that for the competitive side of things, Catch is really moving in a good direction, an interesting direction. I think more people are getting involved with this stuff and trying to, you know, put the teeth into it. So if you want to get started with stuff, I would get started right now. Gain some skill, play a lot, become good at the game, become strong. And then in the end, hopefully we'll see you in like CWC or AXS or any other tournaments that might pop up later this year. So yeah.
All right. No, I like how it is a virtuous cycle. The more tournaments there are, the more players are going to participate, and the more players are going to participate, the more tournaments there are, etc., etc.
It's to the sky. Almost, right?
Yeah.
Sky's the limit. You never know where we can become eventually. Who knows? Maybe tournaments will become as big as to have 64 teams eventually. We'll never know, but time will tell.
All right. So we have a couple of community questions that we'll go through. Let me just pull those up. Let's see. Do you think that Catch having no editor has hindered people in the past getting into mapping for this mode? Obviously for Hyperion.
Yeah, yes. So we kind of touched on this a bit earlier.
To what extent do you feel?
It's very, like, it becomes very obvious as soon as you start using the editor that the X position is really all that matters. I mean, you could open up any kind of standard map and then test play it, and you would say, okay, stuff on the left side of the screen on the standard like map like falls from the left side of the screen when you're playing, and so on. But the real problem a lot of people who are trying to get into Catch have is making kind of patterns that play and flow nicely, because in Catch you're limited to that fixed catcher speed that Sartan was talking about right back at the beginning.
Right.
So we have these kind of issues called, well, in our ranking criteria we call them edge dashes, which is where the distance is like almost enough to trigger a hyperdash. Like you can almost not reach it without the hyperdash.
Okay.
But if you've got perfect timing, you still can. So
What was that?
That's a kind of, you catch one note right on the edge of the platter, and then you dash across, perfect timing, and you catch the second note right on the edge as well. And there's no warning
for people that might
pixel jumps for people in the kind of older mapping meta. But yeah, there's no warning as to like, oh, you've triggered a hyperdash, or warning, your pattern is now like only 3 pixels away and it's really difficult to reach.
Right.
So pattern everything you map in catch, unless you've been doing it forever and you know exactly what you want to do and you know exactly what kind of flow you're going for, everything has to be test played.
Because you don't have the visuals to go with it.
Exactly.
Right?
Even if you only map like 3 or 4 objects, you've got to test play and go, ooh, that slider was too hard to reach. I need to move that a bit to the left. Or, ooh, I overshot that jump. I should move that back in a bit. So I think a lot of people just get disheartened by the fact.
Or have a good player with you at all times.
Yeah.
You got a room with the good players.
That's another problem. If you're a really good player and you're trying to map something kind of like, say, an insane difficulty or a hard difficulty, I mean, if you've got great timing, you can catch anything. But someone might say, oh, this is really impossible to do, and you're like, oh, don't know what you're on about. I got it 10 times out of 10. But the problem so many people have is that they have to test and test and test and test and test. And it's just really laborious building up that kind of the knowledge base of knowing, just by looking at it, I can tell that that's probably too much, and so. But like once you get past that barrier, I find it really rewarding. But I think that's probably what turns off a lot of people,
like me.
The fact that it's just not particularly intuitive to use, and it does take a lot of time to get into the mapping side. Which is kind of ironic because
it's on a serious note though. Like
hard,
it actually blocked me as well, for example, because I actually tried mapping a few times in the editor, and as John, oh my god, I did it again. JBH said, you actually have moments where you're trying to get stuff perfectly aligned, and you're just trying to get your stuff correct, and you just map 2 hours for like 10 seconds worth of song, and it's just not worth it to people, and you know that makes them quit. So for example, for me, I'm gonna try some mapping again once the editor for later releases, so I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, all right, cool. Let's see, why is the Osu catch emphasis on hyperdashing to catch the strong note rather than pressing hyperdashing on it? Now that sounded like Chinese to me when I initially read it. Can you unpack that?
So I'll perform a kind of standard analogy, as in when you hear a strong sound, you've got that kind of the cross-screen jump over to the other side and big spacing and so on.
Right.
So hyperdashing in catch is pretty much the same thing. When you've got a strong sound you want to emphasize, you put a big jump, or you put like a lot of kind of quick movements or direction changes, because we've only got the one axis of left or right to go on. So I think, judging by the comment, I can maybe guess who made this, but I think it's just a victim of the meta. So someone decided, I want to get to the strong sound, and when I hit that sound, I want the emphasis to be there.
Okay.
And then other people thought, oh, that looks good, and they started doing it. And other people in their mods would say,
evolved.
You should put the jump to the strong sound because it sounds better. And I have seen people jump from the strong sound, so you get like kind of exploding feel, like when you hit the object and then there's a strong sound and then you zoom across to the other side of the screen. That I think is a perfectly valid option. It's just underused because too many people are used to the one pattern that they say, oh, this is bad, you shouldn't do it.
That's the issue with any meta, right? Just conform.
Yeah, I think as long as people use something like that consistently and it makes sense, then I think that's perfectly fine. I've seen maps that use that technique and they play really well. So if anyone is wanting to, if any mappers are checking that out and want to,
any savants or
kind of try something different, then go for it. I mean, you're probably going to have to argue with people a bit, but that's most mapping.
Get a lawyer and everything,
as far as I know.
Intensity.
How do you guys feel about current star rating and PP system regarding Catch the Beat? Because I know regarding standard, obviously there's always complaints, discussion going on. How about for Catch?
This is a big one again. Like, this is a very.
You can keep it fairly short. Don't. There's no need to.
I'll try to. But pretty much, like, I think that the algorithm that calculates PP for Catch right now isn't really quite that bad, but it's just pretty easily abusable, right? Certain maps that have more of these comparably jumps like edge dashes, which JBH mentioned earlier, that kind of stuff, are more considered harder because, well, simply said,
crosses more distance, right?
It crosses distance, but the thing is, it's harder to time and it's harder to actually get those notes not break combo.
Okay.
With snapping meta, you more can feel the rhythm kind of while you're going around with your catcher, and honestly, it's lesser hard, but it does actually mean that your catcher, you know, it travels more distance because you do hypering all over the place. So a lot of maps like, let's say, I'm going to take an example to image material, the Envision difficulty, which is a 9.6 star map. Actually, it was about 1.4.
Sounds so absurd to my brain.
It's pretty crazy, right?
Standard stuff.
And it rewards about 1.4k PP in that regard, right? But a lot of people argue that because there's converts at, like, for example, 5 or 6 star rating, they feel harder, so why don't they reward more PP?
Right.
And that's a very legitimate way of going on about it, but I just don't know how you would want to improve and change the algorithm so that it won't actually, you know, force more PP onto that one map and give it more to the convert. I think that's a very difficult task to do. And honestly, I'm quite satisfied with the PP system as it is. It had a big overhaul, which we discussed earlier. And, well, we'll have to wait and see what the future brings, honestly. But again, it's just the frustration that players have that harder maps sometimes just give lesser PP than actual easier maps just because of the algorithm itself and the entire hyper dashing / time.
Would you say that the systems regarding, well, both mapping and PP in general are more limited in Catch the Beat because of, you know, you're limited to left-right position? I mean, you have less variables in that regard?
Probably.
Okay.
I'm guessing, yeah.
Just a random
maybe
thought.
JBH can go more into that because, you know, you have...
He has a thesis on it,
a
ready to go. 30 pages.
So as I said earlier, I had done some standard mapping, and I have a couple of standard maps ranked as well. And I was always into kind of making things align neatly, and I blanketed everything way too much. And if someone said, "Oh, this needs to be moved," I would have to move like entire sections around just so that it all kind of sat nicely together with me. And coming to Catch, yeah, it is like you do have less available to you by only having that one dimension. But you still find ways to overcome that.
I mean, fruit finds a way.
Sometimes you'll emphasize something more by forcing a direction change in a different, like in a way that you wouldn't expect. So as soon as you hit like a really big jump, you've then got to go like a slight movement backwards, which a lot of people would term like anti-flow, as opposed to normal flow where you're just kind of sliding left and right and it's nice and smooth. Some people would put kind of snappy jumps. Some people would put fast kind of wiggling patterns. There's a lot you can do once you sit down and understand.
Once you spend the 2 years learning the editor,
what's available to you. But if you have mapped in kind of standard before, being restricted down to that one axis is quite limiting to begin with.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it was touched on before. What's your opinion on Heart Rock currently in Catch? What's the current state of Heart Rock to begin with, for context, first of all? How does Heart Rock work specifically?
It makes the map, the AR goes up. So just like the standard, AR goes up. And as in standard, the circles decrease in size. You also have a decreased catcher size. So decreased area of catching nodes. And the nodes
he shrinks?
are smaller too. It actually shrinks, yeah.
Okay.
If you have like CS10, circle size 10, which your catcher shrinks together with, you can like see its entire body. You should try it. It's really funny, yeah. It's really funny to try and spot Yuzu in its entirety. But yeah, opinion on Hard Rock, honestly, that's a pretty weird question. I think it's balanced. I think it gives proper PP, a proper PP boost to whatever other stuff you have to do to try and FC maps in this harder state. perhaps a little bit more, but the question is kind of general, really. It's really general, so I don't know exactly how to answer it, but I guess it's all right, really. I guess
that's
right,
more than I can provide. I mean, I can't read anything above like AR 9.5, so
Patch has
like
mods?
nearly
What?
every hard rock map is completely inaccessible to me.
Feel bad, man. Your guys' thoughts on Dodge the Beat?
Oh, I love this one, honestly. I actually forgot to mention with the tournament section, but there was a Dodge the Beat tournament in 2015 too, which was one of the coolest things ever to be done, honestly, in the community. Hosted by Insaneto, and the winner was Ken. I'm not sure if he's in the chat, but basically, Dodge the Beat is where you just don't catch fruit and try to get as least possible score as, feasible.
Right.
And I think there's one cool thing you could perhaps do with the entire Dodge the Beat thing to make it a little bit more of a mini game to a mini game, which would be maybe add a mod that would actually allow
a miniature
for you to
game.
Dodge the Beat. A miniature game, yeah, microscopic.
Did you make specific maps for it, or did you just pick maps that were suitable for it?
I didn't host that tournament myself. Insaneto, actually a variety of maps that were suited for that manner of play, and some maps that were just, general catch maps.
Because I remember there being a map that has an actual maze.
Yeah,
made of fruit. That's the one that I've played, and I think a lot of people have.
The Tay maze 2B, I think, is one of the most notable examples.
Yeah,
it is really fun. Yeah, I think one thing that has been floated around, I don't know whether it's been mentioned before, but Zach, if he's in chat, I've heard him mention it before, would be if it would be possible to have Dodge the Beat maps loved, but with the scoreboard inverted. So number one would be the lowest score.
That would be cool.
And so on. That would
be
a really cool idea that I would love to see, actually. I don't know how feasible it is, but I'd love to see that.
Have that.
Who knows? We'll get another Dodge the Beat tournament. Who knows?
All right.
Can't promise anything.
Anything else that you guys are have on your mind or want to add? Want to say, want to sing,
really.
Want to dance to?
I just want to thank you. I could perhaps dance, but maybe for another time. But I want to sincerely thank you for inviting us over here.
Session. All right.
And showing the game mode to people. And
you guys legitimately, these two guys basically wrote a thesis in our Google Drive that we used to prepare the coffee hour. It was like 7 pages of text that we had to go through. So that was very dedicated.
But yeah. Anyway, if you want to try it, Catch, definitely go ahead and do it. You can shoot me a PM as well if you liked it, or if you didn't like it, I can take anything. But yeah, definitely go and try it. It's becoming more interesting, the game mode, and I hope you enjoyed this little presentation and this little bit of history about a Catch game mode.
And I'm sure that if anyone has any, if anyone wants to try Catch and has any questions, I'm sure that they could shoot you guys a message with a question.
Oh, absolutely.
Obviously.
I mean, I love helping people who are trying to get into mapping and modding and that kind of thing. So yeah, if you do have any questions that you think I could help with, then do please just go ahead and send me a forum PM or in-game message. Because as Sartan said for tournaments, I think we've got quite a lot of new modders, mappers, beatmap nominators, and the infrastructure in the mapping scene is advancing much faster than I think it's ever done since I've been here. So I'm looking forward to some real improvements in 2018.
I'm also getting a quick poke for a shout out to the Mentorship Program. Can you elaborate on that?
So the Mentorship Program is currently run by Okaratu and Half Slashed, and I've helped out as well, along with some other organizers. It currently involves Standard, Taiko, and Catch, and I think the next cycle is going to be the first one to involve Mania as well. So we'll have all modes represented. That will, I don't know the exact dates for that, but I think that's going to be starting at the middle of February, end of February. Someone can correct me on that. But if effectively that is experienced mappers and modders picking people who are new in the game mode or want to try and improve their skills in mapping and modding, and giving them some variety of lessons or tutoring or examples, working in small groups to try and create or improve their content, really. And it's got all kinds of different features, from little mapping and modding puzzles to contests, speed mapping, discussions where someone on an expert on a topic talks about some feature like hit sounding or patterning, etc. in detail for everyone to join in. So when the announcement goes out for that, if you're interested in learning not just catch mapping, but any kind of mode mapping really at all, then do try and apply for that and see if you can grab yourself a mapping senpai to help you learn.
I just realized here we had a little clip of Catch in Laser. I was quote unquote afraid to play it because I wasn't sure if I was gonna blow anyone's eardrums out again. But if I simply do one particular thing, we should be good. So I apologize if you do lose your hearing going forward, but I doubt it. Here we go. If you hadn't seen it yet. So this is one of the best Catch players, Peppy himself. Is it actually? I did mute it. No, I mean, I wasn't entirely sure if there was sound or not. It was a risk. It was a risk. I'm sorry. It was a risk. It was worth the Peppy skills. Let's be real. Yeah. Oh no.
See if they develop that any further.
Okay. I'm so sorry. I just muted everyone else. I tried muting the clip and I just muted you. So you've been talking for about 30 seconds and we've just been sitting here quietly.
Free me.
Oh, JBH.
You're good.
Oh my god, happy. You're ruining us. You're ruining us.
I'm not sure. It's
I was just re-mentioning that I thought the Catch Laser clip that we just saw looked very impressive, and since it hasn't had any new mechanics in like nearly 6 years now, I'm interested to see if they throw any new aspects at it to brighten it up for the new era.
I mean, Peppy mentioned that it's gonna be even more cool in the upcoming future, and this is not like a finalized version of it yet, so I'm entrusting him to that, and I'm very much looking forward to Laser with Catch, so time will tell. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining me tonight, and for taking as much time to prep as you guys did. That was quite insane. It's obvious that you guys are passionate. I'm sure that Catch as a whole is extremely passionate community, and it shows, which is awesome. So thank you guys so much for being on, and we'll see you guys around.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having us.
Thank you again. Yeah, it was really enjoyable.
All right. So I'm going to mute myself over here. By now the sun went down. As you... I'm a little bit less bright than we were at the start. That was our first history of game modes. I hope you learned something new. I apologize if I blew out your eardrums. A little bit. It's been a while. It's gonna be the excuse here. We're not entirely sure what the next game mode that we're gonna tackle is gonna be, but we'll keep you guys tuned. So yeah, I really appreciate you guys hanging out. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And we will see you guys next time. Have a good one, guys.